The 2026 NBA draft will produce the next Chris Paul, Ja Morant, and Dame Lillard. Let's lock in and find out why.
You are Locked On NBA Draft with no ceilings. Your daily podcast on the future stars of the NBA. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On NBA Draft with no ceilings. Thanks as always for making us your first listen of the day. And more importantly, thanks for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network. Our episode today is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Have your cake and drink it too. Birthday cake flavor is back. No fork needed. Vanilla-y, cakey flavor, caffeinated kick, and no sugar. It's party time. Order now at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. As always, my name is Albert Ghim, and I'm joined by my co-host, PhD in the pick and roll and Long Island style pizza. We've got Corey Tulaba. Corey, we have an absolute doozy of an episode today where we're going to be talking about some of the top point guards of this draft class. And before we got into, all the names and all the situations, wanted to ask you, regardless of rank, I know because, when you're ranking guys, one guy may not be your favorite, but you've got him ranked higher because he's just objectively better. But for you, I guess this is a more subjective question. Who is your favorite point guard in this class and why?
Anybody who knows me knows I love a point guard. The smaller, the better, as I say. Shout out to John Mobley Jr. Shout out to Tahad Pettiford, down year, but we're going to be back up next year. Shout out to Isaiah Johnson at Colorado. But my favorite from this class, because they're going to be in this class, is Braden Smith from Purdue. I just think he is the consummate point guard, like old school, get to the elbow, dissect the defense and pick and roll, make every high leverage pass, run the team, going to be the leader in the huddle, first guy to high five guys, get them to huddle up at the free throw line, defends his butt off, always talking, got some swag to him, like as you and I both saw, got maybe some underrated bounce, at least as long as there's not a defender around. I just love watching him. It isn't my, anywhere close to the list of prospects we're going to talk today on my board, but a guy who I think is going to be an NBA player.
Yeah. I think, wow, I was not expecting that answer at all. And I thought I knew you. And so that's a big miss by me. But to your point, Braden Smith, a guy who I saw live as well. And the thing that I texted you was that in warmups, they threw him an alley-oop. He caught it two-hand, reverse dunked it. Mm-hmm. And it was easy and emphatic. Reminded me of Nate Robinson, Spud Webb, that type of athleticism. And it was very impressive. So there's that. But Corey, we've got a really fun episode today. And the first guy that we're going to be talking about is Darius Acuff, playing for Arkansas, a guy who is a huge name in the draft space. For our listeners out there, if you're not super tapped into the draft, but you're joining us today and you came to learn a little bit, Darius Acuff is having an electric season for Arkansas. A bit of a smaller-ish guard, right? I think he's listed at 6'1", if I'm not incorrect, right, Corey? I think he's 6'1",
I think he's listed at 6'3".
6'2", okay.
Yeah. And to be completely honest, I think that he's going to be very close.
Okay.
I saw him. We both saw him at the Nike Hoop Summit.
Yes.
But I stood right next to him when they played Houston, and I was like, "Yeah, he's right there." Like in shoes, like he's not gonna be 6'3" barefoot, but like in shoes, I think he's gonna be close.
And to your point, sometimes there's like a aesthetic thing with him because he's kind of like a stockier build, that he may not look super tall. But no, you're right. Standing next to him, he definitely is a little bit taller than people will think. So.
And also, like, if you watch the Vanderbilt game, like, he's like towering over Tyler Tanner.
Sure. And Tanner's listed at 6'1", correct?
I think he's got measurements. He's like 5'10" and a half barefoot, so he's about 6 foot in shoes. So, sure. If he's got a few inches on him, that's going to take you to around 6'3".
Okay. Well, when we're talking about Acuff, we're talking about a guy who, like his other peers, has had a 40-point game, has had some huge performances, and I think this might just be me, but I feel like the overarching theme with him when I talk to people around the league or, people who are tapped into, the NBA draft and care about this, I think the overwhelming feedback that I'm getting from people is that he's having a better season than people expected. And that not only is he having a better season overall, but some of the weaknesses and the areas of concern that people had with him, he's really answering those questions with his play this season as a freshman. So that's kind of where I wanted to start. And, some of those questions obviously revolve around, the lack of athleticism, him being like an elite athlete, him being perceived as like a smaller guard, him, maybe not having like elite burst or vertical pop, blah, blah, blah. Also, maybe, some questions about like his, unselfishness or how he would be with the ball in his hands, a ton, what that would look like for Arkansas. There are a lot of different questions. But Corey, you've been kind of on the side of you feel like he's been answering all of those questions and has been having an unbelievable season. So if you can, talk to us a little bit about this type of season that you feel like Darius Acuff is having so far.
I mean, he's probably having one of the best freshman point guard seasons in I don't know how long. I can't think of who would have had like a better freshman season from a point, rebound, assist standpoint on the season. 22.2 points, 6.2 assists. 3 rebounds on 50.5, 44, 80 shooting splits. And then in conference play, which is a 14 game sample, in the SEC, which is arguably the best conference in college basketball, he's averaging 25.4 points, 6.2 assists, 3 rebounds on 51.2, 44, 84.5 from the line. He's upped his game. And like you said, he's answered every question. I mean, look, people still have questions about him defensively. I think those are all very justified. I think that he's going to measure pretty well as far as like his wingspan, and like he's not nearly as disruptive. He's actually, I think, a pretty good shot blocker, like decently. He's not like nothing to write home about, but I think he has some good moments there. He doesn't generate a ton of steals, but he should be able to with his wingspan. I think. I wish he rebounded a little bit better because then he can have some real grab and go opportunities because he's awesome in transition. He looks like, just a one man, like running back, like just weaving through tight spaces. As far as his burst, dude, he's like a Tesla to me. When I was in your you just feel like you are just gliding in that thing in a way that like you don't feel like you're jolting, and like that smoothness of that Tesla is what he moves like to me, to where it's like you don't realize how fast he's going when he utilizes his first step, but he's like he's gone. He's by you. He's generating paint touches. He's the first guy that I'm going to be doing a video scouting report on this cycle. His shot making has obviously been phenomenal. Like he's shooting on and off the ball. He's showing like movement stuff, because Cal, this is his thing, right? Like Tyrese Maxey didn't spend a ton of time on the ball. Yeah. I mean, Acuff is, but he's still like running off floppy action and doing all this movement stuff. And he's pretty crafty and he's knocking them down. I get the defensive concerns, especially because he's, listed at 6'3", but he's also strong. Like he's built like a tank. So I'm not super concerned. He's been phenomenal. I mean, we talk about like his last 5 games, he's coming off that 49.5 rebound, 5 assist game against Alabama, which they lost, but he had a big shot to send it to overtime. Before that, he had 31.7 assists. In his last 3 games, he's got 17 assists and 2 turnovers. Like he takes care of the ball. Like yeah. I don't know. Like he does everything you want offensively from your point guard. I think he's having a very, very, very special offensive season. He's had a 9.7 offensive blocks plus minus. Like he's sick, man. His turnover percentage on the season is less than 10.
That's really good.
Like, come on. Like he has the ball. He's got a 28% usage.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? He's awesome.
Yeah. We just did a podcast on Wednesday where we talked about the top 3, top 4-ish guys, and Acuff wasn't in that conversation. And that just speaks to the absolute nature of this class being mind-blowingly loaded. Like, this is an unbelievable class of freshmen and college players that we're talking about. That is mind-blowing stuff. And something that I just wanted to touch on before we move on, you mentioned the strength with him, and I think that's such an important aspect of his game. I was at USC Illinois last week, and I was sitting next to the NBA executive, right? And I asked him, how important is strength to you? And he was like, it's absolutely important. And it's not like the strength that you think. Like, we're not looking at guys with, big boulder shoulders or whatever. And like, we're not talking about the aesthetic thing. He said to me, can they play through contact? That's the most important thing. Can they play through contact? That not necessarily finishing through. Can they play through contact? When when they're getting hit at the top of the arc, when they're getting hit inside, when they're moving through screens, fighting through stuff, can they play through that? Is what's really important. And I really took that away. And I was actually immediately reminded of Darius Acuff, where I was like, yeah, you might have some question marks about him, right? But the thing that is clear to me is that, number one, is like his demeanor on the floor is excellent, like super stoic, right? Whatever. But he plays tough. Yeah. And the type of whatever questions you might have about him, like creating separation, blah, blah, that will never concern me, because not only is he underrated quick, but he's also so strong. Like, he is a stocky fire hydrant type of guard who's going to have no problem creating separation for himself. And then if you consider the fact that he looks like he's going to be an absolute lights out shooter as well, what are we talking about? He's going to find ways to create advantages for himself all over the floor. But that strength piece is something that really stuck with me and that I wanted to share with our listeners and with you, Corey, as well. And that's how these players are being evaluated. Can they play through contact? Can they play with toughness? And I think that's something with Acuff that really, really rings true. Just really quickly before we wrap up, can you speak a little bit to that as well?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, we've been preaching strength and toughness and the ability to play through that for a minute, and it is, unfortunately, when I talk about my love for small guards, it's something that you really have to consider. Like, these guys who are there was a Twitter account, Jeremy Engelman, I think it was, who has the NBA Rap'em website. He had a list of lottery picks that were 6'3" and under, I don't know if it was 190 or 200 pounds, one of those thresholds, and how they, hold up defensively. And it was like, there aren't a lot of good ones who are under the weight requirement who actually end up defending. I mean, overall, point guards typically tend to be negative. It's just like, can you hold that positive offensive value, which I think Acuff can, but he finishes through contact. I think, he's pretty good at playing physical and playing tough, better offensively than defensively for sure. But it's of the utmost importance when we're considering these, and I think Acuff's got it. I think he can do it. He's somebody who has the frame and that stoic mentality, and the kind of the ability to I think get better at it. Because I don't think it's the best he's going to be. So yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm a very big fan, even knowing the weaknesses he has.
Yeah, no, all that to say, Darius Acuff is a very intriguing point guard prospect that we'll probably hear his name at the top of the draft. But we've got more guys that we want to cover, and we'll hit those guys right after the break. The season's heating up, and DoorDash has a way to keep fans in their bag the whole way through. Whether you're watching the highlights, the tunnel fits, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes the entire season way more fun because every player has their bag. With DoorDash, fans have one too. DoorDash keeps your snacks stocked, your gear fresh, and your watch party vibes absolutely on point. There are nights when your team stresses you out. Let DoorDash become your post-game therapy. Sometimes you just need some dessert. Those late night interviews hit and suddenly you need chips at midnight. DoorDash is built exactly for that. If the group chat says pull up, DoorDash makes sure you show up prepared with snacks, cups, even a phone charger for a friend whose phone is always somehow at 2%. From tip-off to overtime, stay in your bag and order on DoorDash. Get snacks, drinks, gear, whatever gets you through the season delivered right to your door. DoorDash, in your bag all season long. All right, guys, we are back, and we are talking point guards of the 2026 NBA draft. We just covered Darius Acuff from Arkansas. The next guy we're going to be covering is really exciting. We're going to talk about Mikel Brown. But before we do, if you never, ever miss an episode, it's time to make it official. Join the Locked On Everydayer Club and get ad-free audio, access to our members-only Discord, and more, all built for our most loyal fans. Check the show notes for the link. We're talking about Mikel Brown, playing for Louisville, a guy who is an athletic, shot-making, creative passing point guard who's just a lot of fun. And in my cold open, I mentioned some names. I said, we've got the next Dame Lillard, Morant, blah, blah, blah. When I think of Mikel Brown, he's a player who really invokes some of those names with his style of play, what he can do. And right now, he's at a point where it feels like he's finally healthy. He's feeling like himself again. He's completely acclimated to the college game. He just feels comfortable, and he's been on an absolute heater. Another guy who had a 40-plus point game, some really productive, unbelievable games, crazy shot making, right? Hitting a ton of threes. I just think he's an unbelievable player, but I wanted to run an exercise with you, Corey. I didn't prep you for this, but I wanted to run an exercise with you because I thought it might be fun, because I just wanted to kind of gauge how you're feeling about Mikel Brown. So let's start here. It's going to be this or that. Okay? Ready? First one. Mikel Brown or Dylan Harper?
Dylan.
Okay.
I thought about it.
Yeah, you did. Mikel Brown or VJ Edgecombe?
Mikel Brown.
Okay. Mikel Brown or Con Knipple?
Con Knipple.
Okay. Mikel Brown or Trey Johnson?
Mikel Brown.
Okay. Mikel Brown or Jeremiah Fears?
Mikel Brown.
Okay. Perfect. The reason why I wanted to do this exercise with you, and I think I agree with you on pretty much every single one, is that if Mikel Brown was in last year's class, I was just thinking, where would he be, right? Where would he stack up with a lot of these guards or wings of last year's class? Just kind of wanted to do an exercise because he's an extremely gifted guard, a really, really exciting one. And I wanted to kind of hear from you in terms of how you were evaluating him versus other guys in different classes, but also how you're kind of viewing him in this class. So, Corey, if you can, talk to us. Do you have any concerns with him moving forward that kind of give you some pause about his future outlook?
I mean, we just did the this or that, talking about, comparing to last year's class. And I would have him at 5 in last year's class, which is the same spot I have him in this year's class. I have worries about him defensively because, he's not super strong, but he's 6'5", where he's listed at 6'5", and he looks tall, he looks long. He's listed at 6'5", 190. So, and he looks skinny. So if he's 190 right now, and he's going to put on and get to 200, probably throughout his career, then I'm not even super worried. He's a big guard who, not going to block a ton of shots. He is starting to generate steals at a slightly higher rate. But I just think he's a force offensively. Like, he is an offense, or I guess a defense buster, because he's just so talented. His last 5 games, he has been on an absolute tear. He's averaging 29.2 points per game. He has hit, not taken, he has hit 27 threes. And he's shooting 100% from the free throw line in that span. Yeah. All of this, along with the fact that throughout the entire season, he has been finishing at the rim, which was the big question mark coming in. And he's doing it in really crafty ways. It's not like he's just like getting easy buckets in transition. Like, he's doing like acrobatic touch finishes. He's punching on people. He's finishing in transition. I mean, half court, like he is doing pretty much everything. He's just at the beginning of the season, and maybe we could chalk it up to he was dealing with back issues. He just wasn't hitting shots, but his shot profile is kind of ridiculous, because not only is he finishing at the rim, he's also getting in the free throw line. He's got a 58.6 3-point rate and a 46 free throw rate. So like he's maxing out two of the most like efficient ways to score. And once he starts to actually knock down shots, which he's been doing over the last 5 games, but like I think he's going to be a consistent shooter in the league. Right now he's at 35.7% from 3. I think he's going to be close to 40% on ridiculous volume. Right now it's 14.5 threes per 100 possessions. He's going to be a defense breaker, and he could do it on and off the ball. You could pair him with a bigger 2 guard and have a large lineup, or he can play next to a smaller guard too, and you can run him off screens and just. I think his game is so cool, and I think he's just scratching the surface. And when it's on, like it was in 45-point game against NC State, you go, oh my gosh, like he is just as talented as the big 4. So to me, he is backcourt dude number 1. He has been locked in the top 5 throughout the entire cycle for me, because when you watch him make or miss, you just see the talent pop off the screen. And I don't think it's, you need to be as result oriented all the time if the process is right. I love Mikel Brown.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. For our math wizards out there, if you didn't know, last 5 games, 27 threes. That comes out to him making over 5 threes per game. If you needed help with the math, that is an unbelievable.
And I do.
That's that's not taking 5 threes per game. That's making over 5 threes per game. That is an unbelievable clip. And to your point, an unbelievable tear that he's on. And I agree with you. Like, he's a guy, I have him at number 6 on my board right now. I have him just behind Keaton Wagler. And you're going to be listeners out there be like, you're crazy. You're out of your mind. What are you taking? I understand. But I just saw Keaton Wagler twice last week, and he really reaffirmed a lot of the things that I liked about him, even though he had 2 not unbelievable, amazing games. So I'll just leave that at that. But when it comes to Mikel Brown, the reason why I have him right behind him, and there's still an opportunity for me to change things as we kind of come down the stretch. He's to your point, he's a dynamic offensive player who offers you so much versatility. He's scary as an athlete. He's huge for the position. I've always been a huge proponent of positional size. I like guys who can do stuff that they don't usually do at their size. And so Mikel Brown being a 6'5" point guard is exhilarating. So I am right there with you, Corey. And with that being said, we've got one more really exciting point guard that we want to hit, and we will touch on him right after the break. Welcome to the 5-hour energy flavor draft with 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like confetti craze, fruity rainbow, or cotton candy. There's something for everyone. The board is set, the flavors are ready, and I've got my number 1 pick for the 5-hour energy flavor draft, and my pick is definitely going to be cherry. Look, I've always liked cherry, and when it comes to the 5-hour energy with cherry, you get a bold cherry candy style flavor, sweet with a light tart edge with the classic red fruit profile. What is there not to like? But with that being said, there is a sleeper pick as well that I think you should consider, and that's probably going to be Fruity Rainbow for me. A bright blend of assorted fruit candy flavors, sweet layered fruit taste. There's so much to like, right? All of that, it has to be considered. And with that being said, the thing that you have to love is that you're always going to be getting that energy boost for 5-hour energy with 0 sugar. Who doesn't like that? Find your new favorite flavor of 5-hour energy shots today, available online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. Today, we're also sponsored by Gametime. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena. The crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple. That's why Gametime has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. You pull up the Gametime app, you pick an upcoming NBA game, and you're going to have those tickets locked in within minutes. You love seeing the upfront, all-inclusive price. It's great to see the type of view that you're buying, right? And then there are also zone deals that stand out where you can choose a section. Gametime will pick the seats, and you save a ton of money. There are also a lot of great last-minute options, too, with NBA tickets showing up at solid prices. Everything feels quick, intuitive, and stress-free from start to finish. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today, and remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. All right, guys, we are back, and we've been hitting on some of the top point guards in this class. And if we're having a discussion about some of the top point guards, we would be crazy to not talk about Houston's point guard, Kingston Flemings, a guy who heading into the season, I will not lie, a guy who was not really on my radar, a guy who I was not really tapped into. But as the season has progressed, progressed is not a word, guys. Progressed. I was an English lit major in college, so I'm doing a great job. Kingston Flemings has had an unbelievable season, and his progress this year has been great. I just wanted to touch on this before I hand it over to you, and I want to present some situations to you as well, Corey. The shooting has been something that's been very interesting to watch. And I wanted to kind of get your take on this because currently, right now, as we're speaking, he's at 37.9% on his threes at 3 attempts per game. 100 possessions, that's 6.1 attempts per game. The volume is not gigantic, right? It's not gigantic, but he's hitting at 37.9%. But also in my brain, I'm kind of like, from what I'm looking at, I've got some question marks. Now, if we hit on the good, he's an extremely athletic guard. He's got some real scoring punch to him. He can really pass the ball, right? He's got great vision to him, anticipation, accuracy. He's got it all. There's so much to like, but the shooting is a bit of a question mark for me. So I wanted to throw it to you. You are our resident shot doctor and expert. Corey, talk to us a little bit about Kingston Fleming's jump shot and if you feel like that's going to scale to the NBA level.
So here's the tricky part. We also love dudes who knock down free throws, and he's at 85% from the line this year on 101 free throw attempts. Now, when I saw him earlier in the year, when he was warming up, he was knocking down everything. And every time it left his hands, I'm like, that's the ugliest shot I've ever seen. I hate how the ball comes off his hands, but he clearly has good touch. Now, he's hit some big shots off the bounce. So, clearly there is something to him as a shooter. Like there's something there. I wouldn't write him off and say that, this is somebody who is not going to be an adequate shooter at the least. Still, because of how low his volume is and it's low, it does worry me. I wish that he was getting more up because he also doesn't get to the free throw line a lot. Like his free throw rate is sub 30 and his 3-point rate is sub 30. And that's not good because that means that he doesn't get a ton of threes or a ton of free throws up. And so that means that he's living inside the lane. He's not drawing contact. So he's settling for mid-range shots and like floaters, and so that's a little worrying to me. I mean, he's got 9, for as explosive as he is, he's got 9 dunks on the year. And he is like, his first set is insane. It's insane. And he's shooting 60.5% according to Bartorvik on close twos, 43.4 on far twos, which is pretty good. Like he's very comfortable in that pocket.
Yep.
And that's a shot that you need to get to early in the shot clock. And I think it helps him with some of the plays that he's able to make because guys got to step up and it opens up lanes. And he's done a really good job as a playmaker. The kid is awesome. And that's why this class is so insane. I have him at like 10 right now, which, I know a lot of people have him closer to 5 than 10, but I have him at 10 just because I am worried about his offensive process a little bit. But the thing that he does better than the two guys that we talked about earlier is he's a better defender.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you could maybe chalk some of that up to, the system that Houston runs. With the guys, at how disciplined they are, the length that they have, they're going to force guys into bad passes that are easier to intercept. So maybe it's juiced a little bit, and I think there might be something to that a little bit. But he's a better defender than the other two guys, and so if he does become a shooter who gets them up at a slightly higher rate, you're looking at somebody who is going to be a really high level starting point guard potentially. So yeah, man, I like the kid's really good. Like, he takes care of the ball. He defends. He gets to his spots. He knows his game. He has an impact on winning, but he's also prone to having some stretches where he's not doing a whole lot. Like his last 5 games, he's been, he's been okay, but the turnovers have, been up and down in those games. He's been pretty inefficient in those games. 6 for 18 against Kansas, 6 of 17 against Arizona, 2 for 13 against Kansas State, 2 for 9 against Utah. His only game over 50% was the Iowa State game, which was, that he was 9 for 15, solid. He had 22 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. But he's in a little bit of a downturn at this part of, the college season. So I'm going to look forward to see how he fights and works through that stuff, but I like him a lot. I just think his offense I have questions.
Yeah. I think all week long for us on these 2 pods, Wednesday and Friday, we're talking about some of the absolutely most talented prospects on the planet and guys who are 100% worthy of going very high in this upcoming draft. And I think when we're talking about guys at this level, it's obvious that we're going to be splitting hairs. But
yeah,
to your point about Flemings, I do feel like because there are some real question marks about his offensive game, I think that also leads me to having some questions about fit in terms of where he gets drafted and where he ends up, because I think it will be really interesting to see the type of situation that he walks into and whether that situation will be optimal for his development. And so that's something that I'm definitely a little bit more worried about with him than I think I would have been earlier on in the season, is kind of where I'm landing. And, on our last, Locked On Mock Draft podcast that we did last week, I think Rucker had him going number 5 to the Nets, right? And I think that's going to be an interesting situation too if that comes to fruition, where he goes number 1, he goes top 5, and he goes to the Nets on a team who just drafted Nolan Traore last year, who's been playing better as of late, who have Jaeger Dioman, who, coming into the draft, we saw him as a guy who could initiate a little bit and do stuff with the ball in his hands. And that also has Danny Wolf, who was a big who liked having the ball in his hands and can do stuff. So
Traore's been playing pretty
that's what I mean.
Good ball recently. And there's some crossover in, I think, their style too. Like they're
right.
Traore and him actually, I feel like are pretty good parallels.
Downhill drivers, can do stuff in the mid range. Yep. No, I 100% agree. 100%. So that'll be an interesting one too, right? To see if that's the right fit for him and if that's the right situation that he should be walking into. I'm not sure, but I think overall with the 3 guards that we've touched, and we haven't even touched on guys like Christian Anderson or LeBaron Philon, and there are all Bennett Sturth. There are a lot of great guards in this class, and even who I mentioned earlier, Keaton Wagler, who's not exactly a guard, but could be a guard-ish type of player in the NBA. So a lot to like with this class. We really hope that you guys have enjoyed these pods and talking about some of these top guys. I know usually we do more single guy focused pods, but we felt like it was time to touch on, some more broader aspects of the NBA draft. And we hope you guys have enjoyed. Please continue to lock in with us. We'll be back next week with more exciting context. My name's Albert. He's Corey. Thanks for rocking with us.